Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the latest in the case of Mahmoud Khalil. I know there are many different moving parts here, but this is the guy from Colombia who, at least by the United States allegations, was very involved in anti-Israel activity by his own representations. He was, yes, involved in demonstrations to protest the bloodshed in Gaza, but he didn't do anything that otherwise disrupted student activity or that was anti-Semitic or the like. Now, the big point about this one is he was detained based on this very unusual and rarely invoked and apparently very powerful provision of law that says if the Secretary of State personally determines that an individual who is here, not a citizen so far, but an individual who is here on the grace of the United States under some kind of visa, if that lawful residence, continued presence in the United States would somehow be detrimental to foreign policy, and that's all it says, he can be deported. He can have his lawful status removed. And Marco Rubio did it in response to or with respect to Khalil, who has been, as a result, incarcerated in New England ever since then. And he has, been trying to both protest on the facts, but also say this provision really is not lawful. It gives such discretion to the Secretary of State and the administration. Okay. In addition, it has come out in different kinds of news reports, this sort of stray, it's more than a suggestion, but assertion by the United States that when Khalil came to this country, he did something not quite proper, didn't cross all the T's and dot all the I's with respect to his application. And on that basis as well, he can be deported. So that makes the whole argument about Rubio's authority superfluous, because they can get him and deport him for other reasons. To date, the focus has just been on this first one. And today the judge said, you are right, Khalil. I am ordering that the assertion by the United States of this power is likely unconstitutional. We are still at a preliminary injunction stage, but he finds that all four factors, likelihood of once he has determined that, especially about the likelihood that it's an unconstitutional provision, he finds all four provisions that you do when you consider a stay. Who's likely to win? Where are the balance of equities? Where is the irreparable harm? What is in the public interest? All of them in the judge's order cut in favor of Khalil, and therefore on that basis, he rejects close to definitively that assertion of power, says it doesn't cut it, and would on that basis say that Khalil can be released. But two big caveats. First, he stays his order until Friday, just 48 hours, in order to permit the administration to appeal it. It's coming out of New Jersey, so this would go to the Third Circuit. And as always, it would be emergency. Don't let him out. We're going to suffer, we, the United States, irreparable harm. And then there is this lingering other charge. And he says, I'm not dealing with that one. The United States has talked about it. It could still try to deport him based on it or whatever else they got. However, so now as to this second kind of trailing charge, what the Judge Farbiars, the judge in New Jersey, did with this before was say, give me some briefing, United States and Mr. Khalil, on this inaccurate filling out charge so I have a sense of it. And that last brief was filed just yesterday, and he uses it in his completed order and says, I've looked into this. It's not the kind of thing people are normally deported for. So he would have a very strong argument if you went after this, that this is pretextual, and it's really what's really doing the work is the Secretary of State's determination. And see, back to what I just said, that doesn't cut it. So my determination is he has a likelihood of success on the merits, including if you bring, which they haven't exactly done, this second charge. So I say he prevails and gets at least temporary relief, but the U.S. has until Friday to try to appeal this to the Third Circuit, and the U.S. also has until Friday, presumably, to file a new motion to remove if it wants to try to go on the basis of the inaccurate filling out of the form. And they don't have to do it in front of this judge, but this judge has made it clear, and any other judge would know that. Come on, guys, this is really not the sort of stuff that you deport lawful residents over. He is a lawful resident here. And you're using this for kind of any port in a storm in order to get rid of Khalil because you've lost in your other efforts. Okay? So the big question now in the Third Circuit, I think, is going to be, even though it's in this posture of not exactly final, just likelihood of success, but what about the constitutionality of this provision that just says the Secretary of State, if he does it himself or herself, can just say, I think this would be detrimental to the national interest, goodbye. On the one hand, it's the kind of open-ended discretion that is anathema to a normal constitutional structure. You got to put up or shut up. You have to have your facts out there so a court, a neutral decision maker, can evaluate them. On the other hand, we are in, as always, this area of possible national security where at least some courts are inclined to really defer to the executive branch, and they might say, you know, it's a special and weird grant of power, but Congress wanted the Secretary of State to have it and wanted the Secretary of State not to have to give reasons, and there could be good reasons for not giving reasons. Therefore, it's a constitutional provision, and they would reverse the judge and remand, and probably to for the judge to have to reject the claim that he has now accepted. Okay, so Khalil, the really distinctive thing. First, there's the facts where he says, yeah, I was a leader at Columbia, but not of the things that the administration purports to be offended by, anti-Semitic activity and the like. But second, you've used this Marco Rubio provision of he just says so. That shouldn't be permitted in the United States of America. It's too much broad and unstructured discretion to one executive branch official. Strike it down. That issue, with which the district judge agreed with Khalil, is going to be the hot one for resolution by the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court going forward, unless for some reason they are able to, the United States is able to deport him on other grounds, effectively mooting this. In other words, if they're able to proceed on this, he didn't fill out his paperwork right, and therefore we are telling him he has to go. But Rubio has said in the past, I'm going to use this power a lot. So where the constitutionality of that power is going to be tested, whether in the next few weeks with Khalil or in the near future. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.